Hello and a very warm welcome to Have Your Say. I'm David Eads. It's one of the most repressive nations on earth, and today we're discussing the recent unrest in Burma. Well, the country's been witnessing rare dissent against the military in recent weeks, triggered by rises in the price of fuel. The protests have continued on an almost daily basis. That's despite a tough security clampdown by the military government. Burma stands accused of serious human rights violations and political repression. All this despite sanctions imposed by the West. Well, what do you think should happen now? Do you think perhaps tougher sanctions could be imposed on Burma? Or should the international community sit down and talk their way to progress and engagement with the authorities there? And what about Burma's regional neighbours? What should they be doing? Well, we want to hear your views. This is how you get in touch.
You can phone Have Your Say on 442087495353 or email us. The address is haveyoursay@bbc.co.uk. You can also send an SMS text message to 447736 100 100. All of those details and information on other ways to get in touch are on our website bbcnews.com/haveyoursay.
Well, just before we go to our guests and our callers, let's have a reminder of some of the key events in Burma's recent history since its independence from Britain nearly 60 years ago.
Burma, which is also known as Myanmar, has been under military rule since 1962. The regime suppresses almost all dissent and stands accused by the West of gross human rights abuses. In 1988, thousands of people died in anti-government riots and many advocates of democracy and human rights were arrested. The opposition leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, and her party, the National League for Democracy, did win a landslide victory in the 1990 general election. But the result was ignored by the military, and she has spent 11 of the last 18 years under house arrest. The US, Canada and the European Union have all imposed sanctions on Burma, but the country still enjoys political and economic support from key neighbouring countries, in particular China. Earlier this year, a draft US resolution at the UN Security Council, which urged Burma to stop persecuting minority and opposition groups, was vetoed by Russia and China.
Well, we're joined today here in the studio by Dr. Zarni, a visiting fellow at the University of Oxford and an independent Burma analyst. Dr. Zarni, thanks very much indeed for joining us here. A lot going on in Burma over the course of the last few weeks. Difficult, nonetheless, of course, to get a very precise picture.
Well, I think that the protest over the past 2 or 3 weeks have been sparked off by the sudden announcement of the 500% rise in fuel prices, and so people were already impoverished, and so the withdrawal of state subsidies that had been in place for several decades were suddenly withdrawn, the junta without explaining the reason and announcing. And one theory is that the junta wanted to placate warm up to the International Monetary Fund, from which they are seeking technical advice, if not loans. And so whatever the reasons or the rationale, the manner in which the junta raised the prices, forced the consumers in a very, very difficult situation, and that's what we're seeing for the past 3 weeks. Protests in different parts of the country, although they are small scale.
But that's what's put us where we are. Let's get a couple of emails on precisely those issues. We can start with this one from CWM in Rangoon in Burma. Now, I should point out that some of these emails, we don't have the actual names. I think there is a genuine concern from many people in the country that they would sooner not put their precise details forward to us. We've had that with phone calls as well. But let me bring you these two. This is from Rangoon. The Burmese people are seriously suffering the effects of economic devastation that are growing day by day. We live in fear. That's why the protests are a good thing. They alert Burmese people and unite them in their respect and support for those who courageously took part. And this from Emily in Rangoon again. The demonstrators are the true heroes of Burma. Even though economic hardship is rising, most people are scared to do things that are going to look like efforts to seek freedom. Emily says, I am one of these people, but I think it's time all of us took part. That's the only way to get freedom and democracy. Well, those are just two of many emails we've had in, and I think we have on the line now an independent Burmese politician, U Win Nai. U Win Nai, you're in Rangoon. Thank you very much indeed for calling us here. Perhaps I could ask you first of all to give us a sense of the scale of the protests, of the scale of the awareness of what's going on in Burma at the moment.
Well, this is the biggest demonstration we ever had since 1988. And this is just a beginning, and it's going on, and it will accumulate and pick up speed, and I believe that finally it will become much, much stronger in a very, very short future time.
I'm very interested to hear you say that you think this is the beginning of something, because what is the fate, as far as you understand it, of those people who have protested and then been arrested? Do we know what's happened to them?
Well, very recently we've been hearing rumors that some of the students' leaders, at least one has been tortured to death, and another two is suffering from high blood pressure, hypertension, and some stress-related sickness and something like that. But of course, we do not have any means to confirm that news yet. But it concerns everybody here, and it sort of raised the level of anger that most of the people are having these days.
Right, I mean, I'm interested. You made that reference to 1988, and we all remember just how devastating that was as an event. Can you make a comparison between what we've seen in the last few weeks? Because certainly from what we have seen in terms of pictures on the television, these protests are pretty small.
Well, you can't just judge it by the number of people who are participating in these demonstrations. It is the expressions of their dissatisfactions with the government's policies and dissatisfactions with everything else, political situation, economic, education, and everything. Most of the people are saying that the thing that started this present demonstration is the economic chaos in the country. But I don't believe that. I believe that there are other factors. It's being picking up and it's been accumulating, and people are very much dissatisfied with political, economic, social, and every sectors of life. And so this is just the ignition point that started the fire.
Can I ask you then, what is the situation with the National League for Democracy, the NLD, and Aung San Suu Kyi in terms of these protests? Obviously, given the size of their victory in the election back in 1990, a long time ago, clearly a huge groundswell of support for them then, they would need to be involved here, wouldn't they?
Well, of course, but what's happening here is right now, the NLD is sort of divided into smaller, fragments. Especially the present CEC without Aung San Suu Kyi is, sort of distance itself from the lower rank and files people, and they have different ideas how to work for the party policies and all these things. And when these demonstrations, the present ongoing demonstration, started a couple of weeks ago, the lower rank and files NLD people would like to join the people, but on the other hand, the present NLD CEC headed by Wong Shui and U Lin had some different ideas, and they said, well, this is not the real thing. This could not be expressed as the people's demonstrations. The crowd are small, and as you just mentioned, the numbers are not big enough, and so on and so forth. So people are, many people are dissatisfied with the CEC's outlook of the present situation. So what we are seeing now is the division of beliefs among NLD party members.
Right. Could I just ask you, and I said right at the start that we've had some phone calls in from people who have been very, very anxious about taking part publicly in any expression of criticism of the military regime in Burma. You're calling us directly from Rangoon. Are you anxious about that?
Sorry, I lost you.
I'm just making the point that we've had a lot of people expressing their own concerns about taking part in a program like this from Burma because of what might happen to them. We've also had emails expressing huge admiration for people who are prepared to stand up and say something. It would seem to me you're making this call direct to us on Have Your Say from Burma. That's a pretty brave thing to do.
Well, you know, somebody has to stand up for the people, and, you know, I'm afraid, not so many people around at this moment. The real true heroes are now under arrest, and some of them are, you know, try to hide somewhere else, and, you know. So, well, we have to come up with something, and we have to join the people.